What's up, guys? Welcome to Back in Service, the channel that talks about guns, gear, and survival. Today, we're going to be talking about how to calibrate your compass and use it with a map to find your way. It's going to be a super simple video, super basics for people who've never picked up a map or a compass before. So, let's get right into it. Alright guys, so the first thing that we're going to talk about in this video is your compass. So this is a Sun 2 compass, and this is specifically made for using in conjunction with a map to find your way. So before we get into how to use it, we're going to talk a little bit of magnetic declination. Everybody knows that on a compass, the needle here points to north. Well, that's not 100% true. The needle actually points to magnetic north. So, if this is the world right here, this is North America. This is the north on your map that your map is pointing to. But your compass does not actually point here. Your compass points off somewhere off to the side over here. And that's actually called magnetic north. So before you actually start to use your compass, you're going to want to adjust for that magnetic declination to make that magnetic north point the same as true north. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, so let's get started with the map. So I printed out a few maps here just to show you guys basically what the average topographical map is going to look like. I'm going to put it up on the screen, and as you can see right here, this is the magnetic declination indicator. So depending on where you live, if you live on the East Coast or if you live on the West Coast, it's going to tell you how many degrees you need to set your magnetic declination in order to correct your compass based on your geographical location. So I made a pretty easy grid right here. So if you guys take a look at this, if your declination indicator on your map looks like this one, then that's going to be called west declination. If it looks like this one, that's going to be called east declination. So if the line is on the right hand side of the straight line, then it's going to be east declination. If the line is on the left hand side, it's going to be west declination. In the case of the map that I just showed you guys, the line is off to the left of it, so that's going to be west declination. So the easy way to think of that is if you're on the East Coast, it's going to be west declination, and if you're on the West Coast, it's going to be east declination. So you're going to want to calibrate your compass. So let me show you guys exactly how to do that before we even get started. So on this compass, there is a magnetic declination corrector on the back. So if you flip the compass over to the back right here, you're going to see a little point right there that you can adjust. Now actually, this compass actually comes with a little tool that you can adjust it with. So since we live, or I live, on the East Coast, we're going to be going with the west declination. So once again, if you live on the East Coast, you're going to do west declination. If you live on the West Coast, you're going to do east declination. In our case, it's going to be west declination. So I'll show you guys exactly how to do that. So if you take a look at the compass right here, you see those little numbers on the bottom right there, right over here. And you see this side says west declination and this side says east declination. So like I said before, we are west declination because we're on the East Coast. So what we're going to want to do when we adjust it is, I don't know if you guys see this little symbol right here. You're going to crank this little knob over here. So you're going to crank this little knob over here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reset it. If you see, it's moving to 0. Alright, so when you first get your compass, it's going to be right there on 0. Now since we're on the East Coast, we're going to want to move it towards the west declination, right here, 13 degrees. So you're going to crank it, You see how it moves towards the west declination? Now we're going to be adjusting for 13 degrees. Depending on which state you live in, it's going to be different for each individual state. So 13 degrees, right about there. That's just a rough estimate. So if we lived on the west coast, we would be adjusting for east declination, and we would have turned it the opposite way. But we don't. We live in New York, so we adjusted it for west declination, 13 degrees that way. Now, when you use your compass, it's good to go. You don't got to worry about any kind of declination. Only time you need to change that is when you move to a different geographical area. All right, guys. So we have our declination set on our compass for our geographical location. Now we're going to find out how to get to where we want to go using a map. So we got our map here. We got our declination indication here. That's already set. Now I'm just going to use a blown up proportion of this map to make it easier for you guys to see. So let's talk about the map for a bit. I indicated north on here. North is straight up that way. Now, when you're looking at the map, you see all these little squiggly lines here. All these little squiggly lines. Now, basically what that represents is incline and decline. And at the center of those little circles, for example, right there, that's a peak. So the more lines that you have closer together represents more of an incline or decline. So just keep that in mind when you're navigating. You generally want to stay away from something that is going to be a little too steep for you to climb. So something like that seems pretty high. And also you have the elevation on the map. See right there, 200. You're going to see that throughout the map as well, just to help you navigate, find landmarks and stuff like that. All right, so we got our map here. Now we're going to figure out where we are and where we want to go. What we're going to do is, I already made a point right here. Let's say we are at this point right here at this lake. I colored that in. In this instance, we're going to talk about, we know where we are, but we got to find out how to get to where we want to go. So we're right here at point A, and we got to get to point B right here. So trying to go from this lake to this lake. First thing you're going to do with your compass is you're going to set it down. Now you see the red needle right here. This red needle that points north. That is going to also want to be pointing towards the north on your map as well. So once you have that oriented to your map, you're going to take point A, which is where you are, and you're going to line it up along the edge of your compass. Try to get that exactly in the middle. Once you have that lined up exactly along the edge of your compass, you're going to tilt your compass until the other end is at the point that you want to go. So when you're doing this, it's important to keep in mind that the arrow right here on your compass always points towards the direction that you're going to be going. So since we're going this way from point A to point B, the arrow on my compass is also going to be pointing that way. So you have your compass all set from where you are and where you want to go. You could draw a little line, help you out there. You have it oriented towards your map. Now, what you're going to want to do is, you see this little dial. This little dial moves back and forth. The red lines in the dial, you're going to want to match that up with the lines on the map. So if you see these little lines that go down on the map every so often, those are going to be the north and south lines. They also go across right here, east and west lines. But you're going to want to line this up in your dial with the lines, the north and south lines on your map. If you don't have the lines on your map, an easy way to do it is just to fold your paper in half a couple times and make those lines that way. But try to get it as accurate as possible. Now once that is lined up, the lines on your compass, up and down, are lined up with your grid lines right here. You got your bearing. So at this point, you have your bearing. You don't need the map anymore. You got your bearing on your compass, and what you're going to do is you're going to hold the compass like this right in front of you, and you're just going to rotate your body and keep turning until this red needle right here gets right inside that little red indicator line over there. So a lot of people call that red in the shed. So you're going to put the red, which is the needle, and the shed, which are the lines on the compass. So you're going to rotate your body, rotate, 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 and right there. You got the red in the shed, and the arrow on the compass is going to be the direction that you need to walk. So make sure that arrow is always pointed away from your body. So you got the red in the shed, you got your arrow. What you're going to want to do is, let's say for argument's sake, the red is in the shed right here. You're going to want to look down your compass and see what that arrow is pointing at. If it's pointing at a tree, if it's pointing at some sort of a peak or something like that. And you're going to walk towards that landmark that you set for yourself. Because you're not going to be walking the whole time with the compass out in front of you, for miles and miles. You pull it out every now and then. You already got your bearing set. Every time you pull it out, point that arrow. Whatever that arrow is pointing at is going to be what you're going to walk towards. And once you get to that location, you're going to pull out your compass again, line up the red in the shed, and point that arrow, see what it's pointing at right here, and walk towards that. And just keep doing that over and over and over until you get to your location. Now, a few things to keep in mind. For every 1 degree that you're off on your compass, whether it's just human error, whether it's a bad map, which it's going to happen, for every 1 degree that you are off per mile is going to be 100 feet of error in your location. So for example, if you're walking 10 miles and you have a 1 degree error, which is a very slight error, 1 degree error in your bearing, and you're walking for 10 miles, by the end of that 10 miles, it's going to be between 900 and 1,000 feet that your destination. Okay, so we spoke about how to get from point A to point B on a map using your compass, but that was assuming that you knew where you were on the map. Now let's talk about what if you don't know where you are on the map? What if you need to find out where you are, you're lost? Well, this next section, we're gonna speak on how to do that. We're gonna use a method called triangulation. So triangulation is actually pretty simple. The first thing you're gonna need to do is you're gonna need to go to a high point, somewhere where you can get a good layout of the land, where you could get a good look around, see certain landmarks. That's going to be the key thing here, finding landmarks. So we spoke about before are these little circles on the map, and I spoke about how when all the little lines here are spaced really close together, and there's a lot of them, it means that there's a really steep incline. So we're going to use that to help us out. So you're lost, you don't know where you are. You're going to get to a peak somewhere really high up, get a good look around, and let's say I'm lost somewhere here on the map. I get to my high point. I recognize this reservoir. I recognize this body of water, and I see that there is a really high peak right in front of it, right here. I know it's a high peak because I see these lines are a little more close together. And I see that the elevation here is around 400 feet, which is higher than other peaks in the area. So I know for sure that this right here on the map is what I'm actually looking at in real life. So I'm going to mark that on the map. South Hill. So I'm 100% sure that this is what I'm looking at in real life. Now, the landmark that you're looking at, in our case, it's going to be South Hill. As you're looking at it, you're going to use your compass, and this directional arrow is going to be pointed directly at the landmark that you're actually looking at. Not at the map, but at the actual landmark. So hold your compass out in front of you, try to get a good look, and try to point the arrow directly to that landmark that you recognize. And as you do that, what you're going to do is turn this dial right here, keep turning as the arrow points towards your landmark, until you got red in the shed. Until your north arrow indication goes into that little red box underneath that we spoke about before. Once red is in the shed and you're looking at your landmark, this arrow is pointing at your landmark, you can then bring your compass to your map. So you're going to line up the landmark that you spotted with the edge of your compass. And what you're going to do is just rotate your compass and keep rotating and rotating until the lines add up with the grid lines on the map. So the same lines before that we used on the compass, these red lines that go up and down over here, as your landmark point is cornered on your compass, you're going to swivel it until you're not turning the bezel here, you're swiveling the whole compass until the lines match up with the grid lines. These grid lines right here, that's why the compass bezel is clear. You could see through the bezel and you can sort of line it up. But in our case, we're not going to be turning the bezel. We're just going to be rotating it like this. So it's pretty much lined up like that. And what we're going to do now, once it's lined up, remember, you don't turn the bezel in this case. You just rotate the whole compass until the grid lines match up. What we're going to do, once the grid lines are matched up and you got your landmark cornered on your compass, we're going to draw a straight line. Now you are somewhere along this line. Could be here, could be here, could be here. We don't know where. So now we're going to try to find another landmark, another destination that we're able to spot on the map and spot in real life. So let's take, for example, Thunder Hill right here. I know that this is Thunder Hill because I'm at my peak. I see that it's in between these two bodies of water. And it's one of the highest peaks in between these two bodies of water. We spoke about that because you know it's a high peak. You got multiple little squiggly lines here, really close together, and the elevation's pretty high. So I know that that's my spot that I'm looking at in real life. Now, as you're getting your second point, you're still at that first destination where you spotted this first landmark. You didn't move at all from this destination. All you did was look around to try to find another landmark. So you're doing this all from that same point. So you're somewhere along this line. You found your first destination. You used your compass to figure out where you were somewhere along the line. You stood in that same spot, and now you're finding your second landmark. Once you find your second landmark, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to take your compass, you're going to point it at that landmark from that same exact spot you were standing in before. And once your compass is pointed at that landmark, once again in real life, not using the map, you're physically looking at that landmark. You're going to point that arrow at that landmark and keep turning. Same thing as before until red is in the shed. Until this red line on the compass is in that little red indication underneath. Red is in the shed, and I got my direction arrow pointed at my second landmark, same as before. So we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to line it up with the corner of our landmark that we marked out. We're just going to rotate the compass until your grid lines right here match. So I got this cornered with my second landmark, and I rotated the bezel. My grid lines on my compass, the red grid lines, are parallel with the grid lines on the map. I'm satisfied that that's pretty straight. You're going to make a second line. All right, you've made your second line. This is where you are, somewhere around here. And as you see, the more you do it, the more landmarks you get, the more accurate your reading gets. So once you get your reading, you find out where you are, then you could do what we spoke about before. You could find a bearing to get to your destination. So that's pretty much the basics on how to use the map and the compass. I took a class with REI. They offer a great class. We actually got out there. We walked around, we found our way. We got lost. We did triangulation methods. It's pretty awesome. They got some really good guys that really know what they're talking about. So if you'd like, definitely go out there, take the class. It's definitely worth the time and the money. Or if not, you could just practice at home like this. You could print these maps out. You could use You could use regular maps, some Rand McNally's maps. Now, I've noticed maps like these aren't going to have the magnetic declination degree amounts and stuff like that. So it's good if you just print out like a local map of the area, a topographical map that has all that information in it that we spoke about before. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you liked, what you didn't like, if you got any tips or tricks or anything like that. Guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you always go back in service.